In this video, we're going to take a look at how you can monitor your students as they're working through a Desmos activity. So the first thing you'll do is you go to your activities, and when we select our activity that we're going to work through, we're going to go to Assign and then View Student Dashboard. So when we select View Dashboard, our students will see the screen where it says, "Hey students, go to student.desmos.com," and they're going to type in the code TQBZF8. Now, as my students are accessing and typing in the code, I should see them start to appear on my screen. So far, I see that Beth has entered. So I'm just waiting on a few more of my students to type in the code TQBZF8. So now I see several of my students are in. As you can see on the screen, I can see each of my students' names. But if I plan on presenting the screen in my classroom, I may want to anonymize this. So when I click Anonymize, all of my students will now have a famous mathematician's name appear instead. From a quick glance at this document, I can see that 3 of my students are currently working on slide 1, and one of them has already advanced to slide 2. So I could set up pacing if I wanted to and restrict where I want my students to be working. So let's say I want my students to work on screens 1 through 4. Right now, my students will not be able to advance through. So even if Beth were to jump to slide 4, and Kimberly was on slide 2, and Teresa still on slide 1, they cannot go past any of those slides. Within this, I can also see what my students are currently doing. So as they are working on slide 1, 2, 3, or 4, I can take a look. So hopefully all of my students are working on slide 1 at this moment, and I may actually restrict them further to make sure that they're all working on just slide 1. So I can see what each of my students are doing. Again, here's the summary to show that my students are on these screens. And on the student piece, I can look at everything that they have and what they have going on. So if I look on Beth's screen, I can see that Beth is having a great day. I can toggle down and look at my next student. Mondays are always great for math. Kimberly's still working on it. She hasn't figured out what to type in yet. And I can see that Missy's writing, "Is this just for math people?" And no, it's not. So we can go to another screen just to take a look, and I can see that Missy, we have this which one doesn't belong as our next screen. So I'm going to stop my restriction, and I'm going to have my students just kind of working through. So again, my students are working on that next slide, slide 2, and I can select a student and see what they're writing. So Teresa has told us that this first graph doesn't belong because there is not a curve. So it is the only graph that doesn't have a curve. And that's some great thinking there. Now, if I really like what Teresa has here, I can take this little snapshot. So this picture, the little camera has taken a snapshot of this. The nice thing about snapshots is once I see this, I can drag this snapshot and start a collection, and then I can present all of these snapshots to my other students at any point in time. So they'll be able to see all the snapshots that I've taken along the way. On this screen, when I selected 2, and I'm looking at the screen, I can start seeing all of the answers that are there and what everyone has selected. So Teresa, this is not a curve. Kimberly, the line does not have a curve. I could have restricted it so that they don't see what other students have written until they've posted it, or they don't see what students have written at all. We're going to jump to another screen, and I'm just going to have my students go to slide 5 for a moment. And the reason why I'm going to have them go to slide 5 is because it's a little bit different of an activity. So in this activity, or in this slide, students are asked to select the 3 types of figurative language that they feel the most comfortable identifying. So now I can start seeing that one person selected simile, one has selected metaphor, so on and so forth. So two have selected both simile and metaphor, so it gives me kind of a polling option that I have available. So I see that Missy's also selected personification, and this will give me some interesting data. If we go to the next slide, and I'm going to ask all of my students to go to slide number 6 for a moment, again, I can see all of the action that's happening at that moment. So in slide 6, they're selecting their top 3. They're selecting the most challenging type of figurative language that they have learned about so far, and then they are adding a comment about why. So all 4 of my students that are in there currently are selecting just one of them and writing a comment, and then they'll hit submit, and I'll be able to see everything. Another activity that I would like us just to jump to, because it provides some really interesting views, is let's go to slide 11. So this is actually a card sort. So if I go to an actual individual student, so I'm going to go to a student level. This is what the students are seeing here, and they are matching each of the biomolecules with the function and structure. When I go back to that activity to look at from that teacher view, I can see the cards, and I can see that no one has matched a single card yet. So if they start dragging and matching the cards together, I can see that Teresa has dragged 2 cards and has made 2 sets. And Missy's dragged 1 set. Now that I see Teresa, this one's in green, she has found 2 matching cards. The other cards aren't matching though. So even though I can't see exactly which cards she's putting together at this exact moment from this screen, I can see how well my students are doing and who's not working. So if I notice that Kimberly over here has not matched any cards yet, I might go over and see what's going on with her screen. Now she's working and she's really moving through it. She's got 3 correct sets put together. Missy's in the game too. Teresa's got 2 sets, and Beth has started working. So we now see that we have our students doing those matches. I can then select an individual student and see what they have going on. So the 2 cards that Beth has dragged together include the molecules of genetic code and what appears to be the structure of a lipid. So even though I believe that's a nucleic acid card, that function that she selected is nucleic acid, and the image is actually the structure of a lipid, that's why it was telling me that her cards are not matched correctly. If I go to Kimberly's, where we have 4 correctly matched cards, we can see that these sets are matched up, and again, I can look at it there. I can show the answer key if I want to, and I can really see which cards are missing and what she needs to drag together. So those are just some great ways that you can view what a student is doing in Desmos. Again, we can also set the pacing, so if I want to restrict my students back to a different area, we can play snapshots. I'm going to cancel my restrictions. We can pause the activity, and we can present our snapshots. I hope you found this helpful to see what students are working on. And again, in this summary page, I intentionally had my students skip slides 7 through 10 and jump straight to slide 11. Now that I recognize that, I can see that from these dots, no one has done any work in slides 7, 8, 9, or 10, so I could always force them back there if those were activities I wanted to complete. I hope you found this helpful. Let us know if you have any questions.